Welcome to Smoke and Fire Barbecue. Today I'll be giving a review of the Camp Chef Woodwind 24-inch pellet grill. I've had it for about 6 months and have put it through its paces. Like most things, there are some pros and some cons, so this is my honest review. I've been dabbling in outdoor cooking for a while, and I've had a bunch of different smokers and grills. I started with a electric Brinkmann, then a Weber charcoal, Royal King propane, Napoleon propane, Masterbuilt electric smokers, a pit barrel charcoal smoker, which I really liked, but I felt like it wasn't giving me enough control. When the pit barrel behaves, I think it's some of the best food I've ever made, but every now and then it runs very cold or very hot and you really can't control it. So I decided to take a look at pellet grills and ended up with the Camp Chef Woodwind. Like most things I buy, I did a ton of research and narrowed down my selection to either a Camp Chef or a Reqtec. So why this model over the Reqtec? The Reqtec has pretty much stellar reviews across the board. A couple of reasons. The Camp Chef was a little more affordable. Camp Chef has a propane-powered side burner and it's more extensible. They sell some side pieces such as a pizza oven and a griddle. I purchased both and I've used both and they're both very good. Camp Chef also advertises an easier cleanup. If you're familiar with the Weber charcoal grill, they have an ash cup at the bottom of the grill that catches all the charcoal ash. Camp Chef has the same thing in their smokers. It look like all the other brands, including the Reqtec, it's recommended that you vacuum between each cooking session. I'm not sure why Camp Chef is the only brand that seems to offer the ash cup. It seems so simple, but my research showed that it was only available on the Camp Chef. I'm just looking to cook, not clean any more than I have to. One of the other important factors for me was being able to use the smoker in all types of weather. I was actually very close on a Masterbuilt charcoal smoker as well, but they tell you explicitly instructions do not use it in the rain. I called Camp Chef and they said yes, I could use it in the rain. The only concern is don't get the pellets themselves wet. And that seems to be a concern on whatever smoker that you use. But it was interesting that this model has some electronic components that they said it's fine if it gets wet, no problem. And I've used it in light rain and it's been fine. I think the Reqtec has a great reputation as being an heirloom piece, something that you might even be able to pass down to a future generation. That's great and all, but technology improves. I'd rather a new grill every 5 years than something that I will have forever, quite honestly. So I took my chances on the Camp Chef. Now let's talk a little bit about my ordering experience from BBQGuys.com. They had a sale going on for Memorial Day, which included a free cover. I believe the cover itself was about $75, so this was worth it. Also free shipping, so hard to beat. Because of the usual supply chain issues we keep hearing about, most pieces were on back order, but I ordered it anyway. There were different dates for each piece, and I was told the pizza oven would not be in for quite a while. So I ordered the pizza oven from Amazon, and it came in a couple of days. I tried to cancel the one from BBQGuys, but apparently it had already shipped. So I did have to return one of them, and I spoke to somebody at BBQGuys, and they wanted to charge me a restocking fee, but I explained it was not open. I explained the mix-up with ordering, and they took it back free of charge, no hassle. I also ordered a bag of Camp Chef competition blend pellets, and that's what I used on my first cook. Interestingly, if I look at my order history on BBQGuys, it still says that my original order is just partially shipped. So there is or was something going on with supply chain, delivery statuses, I'm not quite sure, but we're about 8 months into this now, and their system still does not accurately reflect the order status. It was the usual grill assembly. Not too hard, not too easy, just the usual. My first impressions, though, were really not great. A couple of the parts had some cosmetic issues. The cover had a pretty deep gouge in it. Both of the top grates were bent pretty significantly, and the heat shield was also bent. Called them up to complain, and they offered me replacement parts, but as usual, everything was back ordered. They offered me a front shelf for free, which I jumped on. That's normally another $100. Also back ordered, but it did come eventually. I had some assembly issues with this, just because the instructions were not clear to me, but it does work great now that I have it installed. When the new parts finally arrived, there was a scratch on the new hood as well. After cooking on it a couple of times, I was getting a little more concerned about the bend in the heat shield plate. So I called them up and they asked me to send in a video, and they told me yes, it was definitely warped and they would send me another one, which they did. So all in all, there were, I believe, 4 parts that were really not right out of the box. They made it right by sending me new parts, but I have to wonder, going back to Reqtec, they have a stellar reputation for great fit and finish and for very high quality parts. So first impressions of quality with the Camp Chef were really not that great. Something that's becoming pretty common is an included app for your phone and probes, so you can monitor your cook remotely, which is awesome. In some of the reviews I read, people complained that the app was really not working too well, and that was one of my concerns going into it. The good news is that the app has been pretty well behaved. I've been pleasantly surprised. The initial connection was a little bit quirky, but since then it very rarely drops connection. I'm able to monitor it throughout my house. I could also monitor it if I go out to the store or something, so that's been very helpful. It also has a history, so you could look back on your previous cooks, and it has graphs, and it shows the temperature of each probe and the temperature inside the smoker itself, which is pretty cool. A couple of months ago I noticed there was a problem with the history though, and the problem is that you were not able to follow the graph on your current cook. Camp Chef did acknowledge it, but they are yet to release a fix. And there's a couple of other quirks and complaints. Cold weather performance has been okay, except one time the screen froze. And since the screen froze, I was not able to determine what the temperature of the probes or inside the smoker actually was. I'm kind of blaming it on the cold weather. I'm not sure. It was about 40 degrees. It doesn't really seem that cold because I've used it in colder temperatures and it was fine. I'm not sure what to blame it on, but kind of a big deal if the mechanism was to freeze because you can't monitor your food. I really don't know if it was cooking, so I had to turn off the switch, wait a couple of minutes, go through a whole startup sequence again, so kind of annoying, and I lost about 20 minutes on an already long cook. I'm not quite sure what happened and what really to blame it on. Another issue is the pellet level in the hopper is pretty hard to judge. There's a little glass window so you can kind of see the amount of pellets in there, but it's really not accurate because the pellets are not fed evenly. It seems to feed pellets from the center, and depending on the way the pellets happen to move naturally, you can end up with a lot of pellets in the hopper, but it still runs out of pellets. And that happened to me once. The app in the smoker itself does not give you any warning that things are not feeding correctly. Your only indication is you will get a message eventually on the app that the smoker is running colder than expected, and at that point it's a little bit too late. You have to shut it down, add more pellets, and go through the whole sequence again. I'm yet to use the high temperature setting. There are a couple of warnings that if the drip tray is too greasy, it would probably start some type of fire. The drip tray is always greasy. I've tried with and without aluminum foil, and really have not been able to solve it. It would be nice to smoke and sear on the same unit though, and I have not dabbled in that yet. I know a lot of people, when they first get a new smoker, they try to add gaskets to prevent smoke leakage. I've not done that. It does leak a lot of smoke through the seams. I read an FAQ somewhere, though, that Camp Chef said you're not supposed to do so. I don't know if it needs that airflow, if that was just an excuse, but you definitely do leak a lot of smoke around the seams. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about how well does the Camp Chef actually cook. Well, the first cook I tried was a rack of baby back ribs, and I cooked it at 225 degrees and set the smoke level at 10. I thought that was one of the cool features of this model, is that it lets you set your smoke level from 1 to 10. A lot of people claim that pellet smokers, they cook well, but there's just not much smoke taste. So I thought being able to set the level to 10, maybe that would help my cause. When I smoke something, I like to have a lot of smoke flavor. So I cooked the ribs to 205 internal, which took about 5 hours. As it was cooking, I watched it pretty closely, and I was smelling smoke, and everything seemed to be doing just fine. The bottom line is they were perfectly cooked. They had a great texture, but no smoke taste at all. So I was pretty disappointed in that. The next day I called Camp Chef to try to get some advice. Maybe I did something wrong. Basically, they told me that it's never going to work or taste like a charcoal smoker. It's a totally different mechanism. They told me a lot of people use smoker tubes to add more smoke flavor, And they said that my choice of pellet flavor was also not great. They said that the Camp Chef competition blend pellets were not very smoky and not the best choice if I wanted more smoke flavor. They couldn't really recommend another flavor, and I really didn't like their answer. So basically, I left that conversation thinking like Camp Chef did not really have any great answers for me, and even though I set the smoke level to 10, maybe they need an option to set it to 11. So after that conversation, I called BBQGuys and was hoping maybe they had a support staff, and they do, but they said that Camp Chef usually does their own support, and they really were not able to answer many of my questions. They were empathizing with me, though, and they sent me 2 bags of pellets for free. I forget what the flavors were, but I thought that was a very nice gesture. I can imagine sending heavy bags of pellets is not cheap or free, so I appreciate that gesture. I took a look on Amazon, and I found a few smoker tubes on there for about $10. I went with the Liz Q, and this really helped a lot. My future cooks definitely had a lot more smoke flavor, and since then I've cooked pulled pork, beef ribs, pork tenderloin, roast beef, and they all have a much better taste. However, I really don't like that I have to depend on a smoker tube as a crutch. I've also tried a bunch of different brands and a bunch of different flavors, and much like smoke chips, I honestly don't taste any difference in flavor, regardless of the brand or flavor of the pellets that I've used. I've tried Royal Oak Charcoal, a bunch of different Camp Chef, a bunch of different Pit Boss flavors. Really, I don't taste any difference. So in summary, here's my honest assessment and bottom line. It cooks evenly, but the flavor is just not there without the smoker tube. Even if you don't like very heavy smoke, like I said, at setting 10, there was no smoke at all. So that's pretty concerning. BBQGuys offered great service, but they were not the most knowledgeable about supporting Camp Chef products. They do send you to Camp Chef, which is fine. And Camp Chef support had its ups and downs depending on who answers the phone. So once again, I will go back to the extensibility of this unit. I like that you can add different attachments. The attachments work well. I think it's very flexible, and it does cook great. It has its quirks, and definitely add the smoker tube if you want any smoke flavor. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you as you look at your options. I would really appreciate it if you commented, liked, and subscribed to this channel. It would really help me get this channel off the ground. Thanks for watching.